Hello, everybody. Welcome. Here, where I am, it's Friday night and it's a little chaotic, but where you are, it might be something else. It might be late Friday afternoon. It might be Saturday morning. It might be 2:30 in the morning if you are in Iran. It might be, I forget what time it is in New Zealand. Saturday morning, I think. Anyway, thank you for being here. We call this Friday Night Comics. We do it every Friday. You're at the Sequential Artists Workshop. We took this over from The Believer years ago when they were doing it during the pandemic, and we just kept it going. We're SAW is a 501c3 nonprofit. It means we survive on donations and tuitions and things like that. You can find out more at learn.sawcomics.org. Let's see, what else? We have some courses coming up soon. Maureen Burdock is doing a 3-month deep dive into graphic medicine. That's going to be super good. That's November, December, January. Next week in this slot, we have Chelsea Akpan is going to be doing a workshop about color, which is going to be super good. Let's see what else we have coming up. So that's Marine's class. We have a week-long workshop. It's still time to get a ticket for that. The hurricane will be over by then, I think. And that's a week-long in Gainesville. Beautiful place. You can find out more at learn.sawcomics.org. Nature Comics with Sarah Maloney is a 4-session course online on Zoom. That starts October 13th, I think, but it might be a little bit earlier. And also, Miriam's going to do a 3-hour, maybe 2 hours, something like that, a real short single session on November 13th, interview comics. We'll post that somewhere else, but you're hearing about it now. Anyway, yes, thank you for donating. If you donated to tonight's workshop or any other time, it helps keep things affordable. It helps us pay the instructors. It helps keep the lights on, all that stuff. So we appreciate donations and your payments, and you can become a sustaining member. We'll explain that someday a little better. Anyway, so here we go. No, we always say no inappropriate speech or imagery, no trolling or hate speech. Keep it PG-13 when you're sharing. Thank you. And share tonight on social media with the hashtag Friday Night Comics and at Comics Workshop if you want to tag us. Miriam is M. Libicki, which we'll put in the chat. You can also come to members.sawcomics.org and find out more about that. You can also share by uploading at the end of the session tonight or over the weekend, and we will put it on to Seesaw Comics in a PDF form. Those are kind of fun and wonderful and all over the place and really, really exciting just to see what people come up with in 20 minutes. And that's an example of one of the PDFs. So you can see that at seesawcomics.org, I think. So enjoy Inking Owls. Oh my gosh. Okay, let me see how I stop sharing. This is so exciting. Awesome. Okay. Miriam, I'm going to spotlight you. So
Okay.
this is where you suddenly get big on your own screen, probably. And yeah, you can just tell me what you need from me. Otherwise, I'll be just summarizing, like I said, what you're saying in the chat and stuff like that. Welcome. It's so nice to have you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Yeah, I'm very glad to be part of this community and be invited to be here. And I always, hear such good things about this workshop and the project in general in the community. So I'm really grateful to be here. Um, yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to introduce myself or not. That was
Sure. Yeah, and sell
sort of
anything.
my
You got
introduction.
anything?
Put
You
my
got yeah, introduce yourself and I always say sell anything. If you got something to sell us, do that too.
Right. So yeah, so I'm living in Vancouver, Canada. I originally grew up in Ohio, but I've been in Canada most of my adult life and my entire cartooning life. I've been in Canada on this coast. I kind of specialize in nonfiction comics. Like I do a lot of autobio comics. I also do a lot of graphic essays. I was kind of part of that movement at the beginning of what's now become a real established thing, but in the mid 2000s, I started doing graphic essays just as another way of exploring nonfiction ways of doing nonfiction in comics. So I'm just interested in doing all kinds of nonfiction in comics and the possibilities of that. And that's going to be part of my, next, if people can make it to the interview comics, um, it's kind of another direction in nonfiction comics. Um, So I also do a lot of things that have to do with Jewish identity, and diaspora Jewish identity from different perspectives. And my most recent project that I published, and also the next one I'm working on, is collaborative memoirs with Holocaust survivors. So my first one was with David Schaefer, and it was part of an anthology that was collected by University of Toronto Press called But I Live, which I definitely recommend that book. So it's 3 stories, 4 Holocaust survivors, because 2 of them are brothers, paired with 3 different graphic novelists, and it's a collection of their memoirs. And that was very successful. It was published simultaneously in Germany. Yes, thank you for that link. Um, Published simultaneously in Germany, and it's done quite well. And so I've been commissioned for a follow-up, which is a real privilege because these are elders now, and so it's really important to me to be working directly with a survivor and are in a real collaborative back and forth style way to tell her story. So that's what I'm working on right now, is my next book with another survivor who is also living here in Canada. Um, and yeah, but a fun workshop that I like to teach, because I also teach part-time at various art schools here in Vancouver, and other workshops. I was a writer in residence at the Vancouver Public Library a few years back. So uh, the inking workshop is one that I like to do, and one that I found adapted well to Zoom as well, and that's where the owls come in, you will see. So if there aren't any more questions, I will jump into my theories of inking.
I have one question, which is we talked
Yes.
about materials, right? And so if people don't
Oh,
have
right. Yeah.
inking supplies, they'll be okay, right?
Yes. So it's so I have like my India ink. I have a palette because I'm going to be doing some ink wash probably, and some water for that. But so and I have like small paper, small but thick paper that I'm working on. But all the inking and exercises can be done with any like drawing medium you have on hand. So you can use a felt tip pen, ballpoint pen, uh, dip pen, pencil, pencil crayons, as we say in Canada, colored pencils, you say. Um, yeah, so all of the exercises that we're going to be doing can be done with any drawing medium. Did somebody have a raised hand?
No,
Sorry.
it went down. It's okay. I
Okay.
never heard of pencil crayons. I put that's
Yes, that's what we say in Canada. Um, now that I've gotten used to saying pencil crayon, when I say colored pencil, I'm like, ew, is that racist? Colored pencil? But anyways, yes, Christian raised his hand.
I'll ask Christian to put it in the
Okay,
chat.
yeah, okay,
All right.
okay. So I have started to share. Hopefully you can see, can everyone see my PowerPoint?
Yeah, midtones and you.
Yes. Pencil crayons or same as oil pastels. No. Well, maybe some places, but in Canada, that's what we call colored pencils. Um, it's the same thing. Uh, what materials that you think comics benefit on? I mean, I really like playing with the different media, and that's why that's one of the reasons why I like doing this class, is that I mean, I'll talk about it a little bit, but I started out doing comics in pencil just because I was too intimidated to learn other things, and I was used to keeping a sketchbook and doing in pencil. Yeah, sorry, Nikki. Yeah, I apologize if the joke like just saying colored, because colored is also an outdated term for Black people. So that's why I say, now that I'm not used to saying colored pencils, when I say it, it has this other association. That's what I meant by it. I didn't mean to be to make light of racism by saying that. Um, so uh, right. So I started out in doing pencils, but like pencils are just super messy. And so I kind of I do like ink wash a lot now, but I also like watercolor a lot. Like I do comics in watercolor a lot. Um, and so yeah, like different media. Like I don't think there is one best medium for comics. There are several best medias for comics, which is kind of what I'm going to be talking about. Um, yeah, midtones. So I kind of think that, when I think about inking, I think that one of the main problems one has to solve um, when inking is midtones, which midtones means neither you've got your pure white and you've got your pure black, and then you usually need to have something in between. So this is a panel from Eddie Campbell's Bacchus. So he's one of my art heroes in comics. He's also worked in a lot of different media. Um, and so, the midtones would be like the person's stubble, the shadow under the cap, the sweater. These are all midtones, and he's also got his, deep black in the one character's jacket, right? So there are people who choose to use, yeah, totally, that choose to use very few to none midtones. Like this is a sort of early-ish John Porcellino comic, and he's. I think one of the main things that you need midtones for is kind of separating out your blacks and your whites, and often separating out like your subject versus your background, or like pulling the focus to a certain thing in the panel. This looks like very simple art, but he is very skilled in keeping things, he definitely directs where your eye is going to go and what the main story is and how much detail to put in and how much detail to leave out, all while having his lines pretty much all the same line width and having very few, not really using spot blacks and not really using midtones. So it's actually, kind of crazy, the skill that goes into this kind of comic, but it's one thing one can do. And then there's also famously like this is Frank Miller's Sin City style, right? Where it's all about the black and the white. And if you were to really zoom in on the guy's face, maybe in the one panel, you could see that there's like texture going on in the white. And so maybe that's almost a midtone, but really the Sin City style is to just eliminate midtones as much as possible. And it's really just the black and the white telling the story. But yeah, midtones is basically, anything that kind of averages out to gray. And there are a lot of comics in color now, but I still feel like, comics, historically, many of them have been in black and white, like originally mainstreams were, and for a long time indie comics were because it's cheaper to print, and still most manga is because it's just cheaper to print. And so having this skill of being able to distinguish things and being able to use midtones in storytelling is very important. So this is just an image that I found of all different kind of lines and line movements that kind of become abstract grays. So this is another one that I found. So this is by the artist Eno Rodriguez Acosta, where they use, they just show like the mark making going from white to black. So for the first like warm up exercise, I would like to, so you don't have to do this full label thing. You can just do like some stripes across your paper to find different ways of achieving, the progression from white to black. So you can take your paper and just, do some horizontal stripes to separate the areas like that. And then and one side, so like again, this is if you're working with Indian ink and brush, you go, full black on one side, and then other side you have full white, and then see what you can do to do your grays, whatever you feel like doing. And so then this is a time where if you have other media as well as brush and ink, this is the time to play with it to see, if you're not, if you're somebody who's not, who maybe would like to do cross hatching but is not very confident in your cross hatching, maybe practice some of that and just see if you can, make a gradient from white to gray using different things. So you might try one with hatching and then, try to see, try to get 50% in the middle, but even if it doesn't end up quite in the middle, see if you can, find where your 50% is also as you're doing it. So that's just the first little exercise. And we'll do like, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes of that. Would that be long enough so that without diluting water or medium? No, you can all absolutely do ink wash as well. Like, yeah, like I think that in our next exercise, the longer exercise, wash, if you have India ink, wash is a very profitable way to do it. Um, there's different reasons why people don't, why ink wash has not been used that much in comics until recently, because it is a little bit harder to scan and print, but it is very, I find it, very easy and beautiful to draw with washes. And now the technology does exist, like washes in comics are successful as well. Um, go back a slide to the actual samples. So Dewey's inks for the crosshatches. Well, if you have, yeah, so crosshatches, any tool you have. So you can use marker, pen, pencil, um, one strip or several exercises. So for this, yeah, do like several strips on your paper. I have four here in the example, but it can be more than four or it can be less than four. So I can go back to the prior slide. So this is an example of, somebody's just using like a technical pen, or this artist is using, I'm guessing, a technical pen, so like a micron. Um, and so they try to get the most black on one side, and then they're experimenting with using different mark making to get from white to black.
Cool. Okay, and so we have 5 minutes for this.
Yeah, it's time 5 minutes for
I
this.
just found this fancy timer on Zoom. Should I try it?
Okay. Yes, please.
Okay, let's see if it's showing to anyone else. Let's see. Uh, oh, I think it's only on my, so if you have to look at my face to see the timer, but
Okay. Yeah, I can see it in your little icon.
cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's our
Yeah, yeah,
timer.
yeah.
Huh.
So you can do it with India ink, and as I said, if you're doing it with India ink, you can either do you can have as one of your experiments to do a wash, to try diluting with water and how that works, and then you can also try hatching or cross hatching in India ink and brush, or you can. This is another time when you can use whatever you have around you to do this exercise.
I feel like stippling alone would take me about 20 minutes
Oh yeah, yeah,
to
that's the one
do
that takes the
that.
longest for
So
sure.
maybe I'm gonna put it off actually and start with the scribbling.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I never think of scribbling as a way to get tone. Mostly it's texture, but I like the idea that it's a way to get tones, midtones and
Mhm.
things. Yeah, cool. This is fun. It's- Eating shapes. I'm just thinking about how lucky those owls are going to be rendered this way.
Uh, I hope that they appreciate it.
So it looks like, what do we have? 1 minute 30 or so, like something like that. So my timer says we've got 11 seconds. I don't know how strict you want to be, Miriam, so I'll leave that up to you.
It does say the
Oh
Academy
my
Award.
gosh. Wait, I got to turn that
I
off.
guess somebody had experience with the Zoom. Yeah, so here's just some of mine that I was doing real fast. So the ink wash is fun because you can also do the, where you just put a puddle of water there and then let your ink bleed into it. Very fun. And so then I did do the stippling because I was using a thick brush. So that's somewhat
Oh,
cheating on stippling. Um, so yeah. So this is just something to, warm up and start thinking about, mark making in order to get midtones. Um, and as a reference. Um, yeah, so like this is just a little sheet I did. This is my interpretation of when I
mhm.
squint at the ones that that the other artist did. And if I try to squint and decide what is 50%, like that's kind of what I arrived
Mm.
at. Um, and yeah, so just some general rules of thumb, about inking in order to, differentiate shapes in your picture and to, focus things. This is just a very, quick little cartoon that I did. So generally, so hatching, I guess you guys probably know the difference that, hatching is parallel lines or more or less parallel lines, and then cross hatching is two sets of parallel lines that intersect. She's so emo. Um, and so oftentimes in cartooning, if you want to establish something as closer to the viewer, you will ink with a thicker line, whereas things further away may have a thinner line. Sometimes people will use a thicker line for heavier things, especially like in classical animation, they did this a lot. They use a thicker line, like if you're drawing an arm, you would draw quite a thin line on the top of the arm, quite a thick line on the bottom of the arm, and that gives an idea of weight. And that's kind of what I did with the example of the grapes. Um, and then oftentimes, again, like this is sort of a technique that was also used in uh, old school animation, that outlines would be a thicker line, and when you were drawing like the features of the face, that would be a thinner line than the shape of the face. Um, and also that if something is closer or more in focus, you might use more contrast on it. So that's kind of the bottom image that I did kind of do some light hatching over everything that was not the emo lady.
Mhm.
the to kind of make it fade out in the background because it has less contrast than what's on her. So owls. Let me see. Gonna share a okay. Uh, okay, so I'm gonna go to my Firefox because I'm gonna share my YouTube video or on my so so it kind of has that noise. So if that noise is bothersome, you I don't know, I guess can mute it or something. But yeah, at
But
your risk,
we're
it's
only
a
seeing
touch.
your
So
Google, your slides
yeah,
though.
no, and now I'm
Oh, okay.
sharing, but I'm just saying that you might hear the
Ah,
noise, like it's kind of a. So do you see now the feed?
yeah.
Okay, so let me do that in full screen on my computer, and that should do it in full screen for you. So this is a live owl cam. I think that shape that's kind of moving at the bottom left, that might be an owl. Um, so I like this because it's almost like drawing a still life, except sometimes things move. And then also because it's a night vision camera, then things are very contrasty, and so it's not, and so some of the images end up being black and white. Um, so I want to like just be on here for half an hour, and so take your time with these as much as you like, and maybe since it's a few squares, do kind of one at a time on your paper, and see if you can really do the contrasts, see if you can distinguish the midtones from each other, and also see if you can kind of find a some sort of narrative in your image, even if it's
Mhm.
very subtle. Like I said on my Instagram when I kind of did my teaser about this class, one of the things I said was what the novelist John Irving learned from theater actors. And it will come back to inking. So when I was doing my creative writing MFA, John Irving came and gave a talk. So I went and saw John Irving, like the author of Cider House Rules and other, classic mid 20th century classics. Um, and so one thing that really stuck with me in his talk, so he was saying that he had friends who were actors in the theater, and they told him that their technique was, they said, I get the script, I look at the script, I look at my character, and I look at my character's arc specifically. I see, when am I the most angry in this play? And when am I the most sad in this play? And when am I the most happy in this play? And then when I figure out those parts, then I know every time I express like anger, not in that scene, I have to kind of calibrate it down from what my maximum is. Or whenever I express sadness, I have to make sure that the sadness is slightly less than the climax of sadness. um and I think that, and that really stuck with me. Like, it seems very obvious when somebody says that. Like, obviously when you have a narrative, you'll have one or two moments that are supposed to really have the biggest emotional punch in whatever way, whatever emotion they're punching you with, and then any other times that emotion shows up, you kind of have to calibrate it slightly somewhat down from that, so that the climactic moment has the most punch. um but then I was like, I feel like that applies also to comics, like your weirdest compositions, or whatever, your most impactful compositions should probably correspond to emotionally important moments. But even
Mhm.
just like, I started thinking about it with inking, is that you have your black, and that's a very powerful, very powerful pure color, and you have your white, and that's a very powerful pure color or lack thereof. um and so but then everything else you kind of have to calibrate down, like everything else has to be in between black and white. So what needs to be black, what's going to have that, full impact of being black. And it's not always, what's black in real life. It's not always about naturalism. And then if you're leaving something white, like that's a big impact also. And so then it's a narrative impact. So anything that is neither black nor white are the things that are distinct, but maybe at a somewhat lower emotional register.
Um,
I feel like that's something to think about when inking.
I love that. That's all super great. However, we do have a question,
Sure
which is,
thing.
it doesn't seem like this is moving. However,
Okay.
and is it moving
Yeah.
on your screen?
I'm not sure. Okay. Oh, maybe did I not press? Is it not playing? Okay, now it's playing. All right, because I can
Is
hear
it?
the sound. Okay, so that now the owl
Oh,
head is moving a little bit.
okay.
Yeah, you're right.
That was the
It's
key.
better when it's moving. Thank you for making
I
that
wasn't
point.
sure. I thought it was just
Yeah, yeah. So
so.
now there's a little bit of movement. I think in the one where it seems like it's maybe the cave entrance or some sort of like a light. There's the leaves are moving a little bit. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
and then on the one where it's the thing hanging out, like you can see a little
Is that?
thing.
I, yeah. Is that like a tree stump or something in the upper
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I think it is like a tree that sometimes an owl will perch on. Um,
Oh, there's one in the fourth box. Something in the foreground. Oh, how cool. But and you're right that these are super high contrast, right? You have really bright whites and really dark blacks. It's so
mhm.
interesting. I'm just waiting for an
Yeah.
owl
So
in the
yeah, so
picture.
we still like oh yeah, it's a baby.
Looks like a sheep. Oh
Um,
my gosh, look at that.
yeah, so just really take your time on this because we're gonna have we'll do this for the next 25 minutes. And so maybe go one by one, maybe do try it to do faster, try it to do slower, try it to do more detailed, try different sizes, and try different tools if you have different tools around you.
Hmm. Where's this cam? Where's
I
this
think
camera?
it might be in England, which is why it's another fun thing to do because I've taught it in different time zones. And so like you get a different experience at, what hour of the day because it is a live cam. Um, there we go.
Yeah, Chris says it's in Yorkshire.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, there's something else going on. But they're all out probably hunting, huh? Because it's like the middle of the night there.
yeah. But now that yeah, I've seen in the chat that when I didn't realize that it wasn't moving, that a lot of people were wondering if it was on their end. But now everybody can see the movement, right?
I think so.
Okay,
Nikki,
so but we can also throw the link in there.
yeah, we've done
I
it in a
guess
couple
maybe I'll
times.
have to.
I think it's that.
Right. No, that's not it. Um, okay. Um, I wonder if I have to exit in order because I don't have the link copy pasted at the
Oh,
moment.
we got it in
Uh,
the chat. That's the correct
okay.
one.
All right,
Yeah.
great.
It's
Yeah.
just that
So
there's
if
not a
it's
lot of
easier for
help.
people to just connect on YouTube themselves, obviously you can do that.
Yeah, they're quiet. The upper right one is teasing us. It's like there's some feathers behind the back of that or something, right? I see a little bit of movement. Thinking about midtones really has me looking at that image a lot differently because that, especially the bottom left one, because
Mhm.
so much of it I normally would probably leave white, but because there's that blazing hot white thing in the middle, I want to render the rest in midtones, and I'm got to think about how. Certainly not going to stipple it.
Yeah, I feel like the black and the white are just both really, you know, powerful tools. And so if you can
Mhm.
use them more sparingly, like what does that give
Mhm.
you?
And you said we could come up with a narrative too. Does that mean we could like put silly word balloons or something over?
Right. So if you want to, like, if something is, if you find if something is jumping out to you, maybe try making it black or white, even if it isn't in the picture, and see what that does to your narrative.
Mm.
Um, or, obviously, as cartoonists, you can also try distorting it shape wise. If you feel that something is, you know, uh, wanting to be narratively important when you do it. Like I feel like the one called Beach Stump Branch, so the one that's kind of the most centermost of the small
Mhm.
um, ones. Like I feel that as a human, I'm really drawn to that light that's kind of in the middle there,
Yeah,
but off centered. Like it's making me think of like light at the end of the tunnel and stuff. And so
right.
who knows what that light is actually? Like, I don't know what that white patch is, but I feel like, if that image seems very narratively rich to me.
Mm.
And, it might be like, think about what that white part could be and what it might be doing to the other elements of the image.
Yeah. And these aren't standard cameras. Or, I wonder the one on the bottom right might be. I wonder what light range we're in. You know what I mean? Like it's not heat sensing and it's not ultraviolet. Oh, there's an owl on the bottom right. Oh, look at it just sitting there. Stay there, owl. It's funny. It looks like that one branch is balanced on those two bricks, but I know it's also held by something on the left probably as well.
Right. Yeah, it might actually be part of like a tree that's rooted,
Yeah.
right? Going
Yeah.
down behind the wall.
I think some other people found another one.
Yeah, so this is kind of my starting to draw the one with the white hole in it. So I just have my blacks here and I'm thinking about how am I going to do my grays? Am I going to try to do, am I going to try to dilute the ink and do a wash? Or am I going to try to do something more textural because it's leaves there, right? It might be fun
Mm.
to um, not use actual washed out tones. Oh, and when I held it up, I got drips down. So that's a kind of cool look too.
Oh, I don't want that owl to go anywhere. Oh, goodbye. Oh, oh, that same owl flew into
Oh,
box 5 or 6.
yeah, yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. So yeah, like you can get, sometimes there's action and then it's exciting to look at, but harder to capture
Yeah,
in
yeah.
your painting.
Hmm. How large of a territory are we looking at, I wonder?
Yeah, this channel has different, it seems like it's kind of in the area, but he has different cameras and he lists like different animals that you will see on different cameras. So I
Hmm.
guess there must be animals with preferred territories like he has. Or I guess in this one, he also lists that, like stoats might show up or something. So maybe during the day it's different animals than at night.
Hmm. What's a stoat? Like a little mammal?
Yeah, I think it's like one of them weasel type things.
I love these Friday night comics because sometimes we have these random conversations like this. We just wind up talking about what are
Learn about
stoats.
stoats. Yeah.
I'm making up some of these bricks.
Small weasel. Yeah, I like.
Oh, Jackie. Jackie says she'd love to dissect the owl pellet afterward.
Yeah, I remember doing that in middle school.
Yeah.
Oh, I totally forgot about the white hole, and I totally filled that in. Now I guess I'm just thinking about the whiteness of the branch. You know.
Hmm. That hmm. Oh, there. It's pecking at that furry thing that we were seeing before, but it
Oh
was
yeah,
there.
it seems like it's got something.
But I don't. Oh, goodbye. It took it. Whatever that thing was that was there before the owl was there. It wasn't moving. Right. That flat stump is a feeding station. Yeah. Could it have been a carcass, I wonder? Some people took screenshots. And then Jen is posting another owl cam. Oh, look at that. If you want that, you can click on Jen's. But I'm really caught up in Miriam's tunnels. Crazy thing about the second one that Jen posted in the chat is there's a million insects in it.
Hmm.
And it's like it also kind of high contrast. But
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
do you ever try anything, Miriam, like that Sin City Frank Miller stuff that's so incredibly high contrast?
A little bit. Like I read after I read Nick Susanis's Unflattening, I was
Hmm.
really inspired by his art style, which
Oh.
also is very contrastful and very almost like very clean shapes and
Hmm.
kind of vectory looking stuff. And Generally clean is not my brand. I would say that messy is a lot more my style. But I had some like I did some like editorial illustration, like some magazine illustration afterwards that I was very inspired by reading Unflattening, and I was trying to do like more like silhouettes and stuff. Like I was
Mhm.
so I don't know if I don't think I was doing like light and shadow, like noir light and shadow, like Frank Miller was doing, although I think it's a very cool look.
Yeah.
I remember Kelvin and Hobbes had he had one of his fantasy characters was a Tracer Bullet or something. He had a noir alter ego. And then Bill Watterson was doing that stuff with like the blinds and the, so yeah, I think
If
that
people remember in the chat, they'll put it in the chat if you
yeah.
remember Calvin and Hobbes' alter ego.
I think it wasn't one of his more prevalent ones.
Yeah, it wasn't Spaceman
But
Spiff.
it was obviously Bill Watterson is master of many techniques, and that was I remember that also being very impressive. Yeah, after this, I'm gonna again like show some, different cartoonists and their approaches, and also talk a little bit more about the tools that one uses. So that's gonna get back to the question that I think Christian asked at the beginning, saying what is the best tools for comics, which I think is a great question because there is no answer. But it's a question you can keep thinking about. Um, and so I do want to talk about like kind of what effects you get with different inking tools and why people, you know, who go
Mhm.
first with certain narratives might choose certain inking tools. Yeah, so that's kind of, yeah, I've just been working on the one with the kind of the twist of the twigs in the foreground.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I am starting to do some washes and seeing if I can make like this particular one that the one that's, almost vertical, and I guess in my version it almost like looks like the head of a femur or something. See if I
Yeah.
can make it pop out as the most white thing, but also like kind of keep the texture of the leaves that are around the periphery.
Oh, wow. It's so nice to see someone who's so bold with their materials. It's great.
Yeah, that's another thing that I love with ink and brush. Um, is that you can you know, do really big movements with it, and then you can also get small. It's really the tool, that I feel like you can go from big to small the easiest,
Mhm.
the traditional tool. Yeah, and so and like, it's also with these kind of things, now that the owl has gone away and we just have this stump again, lovely stump, it's really
Mhm.
nice to think about negative space too. Like
Mhm.
now I think I'm gonna try to draw that one perch and see if I can do the black first. Um, and just find the shape of that stump. Um, and do the, um a flat black behind it, um and then again like see if I can do the textures inside it without losing that strong contrast of the white against the black.
Nikki in the chat reminds us that a group of owls is called a parliament,
Mm.
which I don't think I knew. Who invented all those names?
Yeah. What does it
Those are-
take to get a collective noun adopted?
Right, 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 right. I would like to find out because obviously there are some really great ones, and then there's some real stunners, and then there's some real. I mean, was it a bunch of scientists invited a bunch of poets into the room for once, and then they all got together and put their brains together like 200 years ago? Or do they all come from Shakespeare or what?
Nerds are responsible.
Yeah, Kate writes nerds. Oh, Laura's got a great question. Wait, Clowder?
Because Clowder is kittens, right, Aaron?
Oh my gosh. Cats. Oh, I've never once heard
Oh,
that.
cats, yeah.
Oh my God. Well, that's got such an old English sound to it.
Mhm.
Walter says, I don't think there's an international commission or anything. Well, it's all right now, Nikki's. Oh, science.
Yeah, and again, like a super satisfying thing to do with ink
Oh.
is that you just paint the water in there and then you just connect it subtly while your ink is still wet and let it bleed into there.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, it dries faster than like watercolor, so you kind of have to. I might have already done it too slowly, but like wet techniques, like the Italian cartoonist GP, like he is crazy with that stuff. Like I love his stuff, and I'm usually not brave enough to do real wet techniques because it's a certain loss of control. But
Hmm.
uh, but it can create amazing things out of the loss of control with it. Oh yeah, I got another nice drip down there.
And there was a question about the shellac in India ink. It doesn't ruin brushes.
Interesting. Well, I don't know. I have never I use yeah, like I use watercolor brushes for inking and I just try to keep them clean and like maybe the hairs kind of get darker, but I've never had it really clump as long as I wash it in a timely fashion after using it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh, Italian cartoonist. That's GP because it's that French thing where they make their pseudonym out of their initials. Yeah, so
That French thing.
definitely recommend his stuff for looking at wet in wet technique. He does both watercolor and ink. Um, Yeah, Nikki says rinse them in warm water with dishwashing liquid. So yeah, that would work. There is also like specific, like there's a hard soap that's a brush cleaner that you're supposed to like swab your brush
Yeah.
in and then rinse it out. And that would also works. But I
There's
use
one
that
called
sometimes, but I don't even use that every time. Most of the times I do keep my water next to me. So every time after I use the ink, I just, wash it off and like drip it out. And what I also learned, uh, not like in when you do it in preschool where you just leave the brushes in the water. Obviously, you should not leave the brushes in the water because that'll damage and it'll
Yeah.
make your bristles fall out eventually.
My daughter
It'll
and
damage the wood of the handle also. Um, but yeah, just rinse them after, like just in your nearby water after use each time, and then after a session, just yeah, rinse them out in running water. That's all I do.
I think that brand is called the Masters Brush Cleaner, right? Isn't that one of
Right.
the names?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's got another brand name. So you said we were going to go to the top of the hour. That's 2 minutes away. So we're really going, having a good time here. Nikki says you can also get amazing effects if you forget to rinse out all the dishwashing liquid.
Nice, nice. Uh, yeah, I remember that when I was a preschool teacher, we would and use like acrylic paints or anything. You put dishwashing liquid in the paint, and that's the secret for not permanently staining the children's clothes. Um,
Um, I didn't know that. Oh, wow. Miriam, how much longer do you want to go on this?
Oh, so yeah, okay. So we're up to the hour now. So I guess you can wrap up. Although, and like I said, I want to talk about just other artists and techniques. So I'll be doing that in a PowerPoint again. But of course, now that you guys have the link and other links as well to other
Yeah.
cams, if you feel like it, obviously you can keep inking through the talk. Um, so I'll just show the ones that I did, kind of in this fast way. So that was the one which with the sticks. Um, and then this one I was like, it would be fun if I actually went in with a technical pen and did the lines as, with like a micron or something. But
Hey,
I didn't
Miriam.
do anything of that sort. So that's just the contrast. That's just
Yeah.
the negative space, black and white. And then this
Can we,
one I did super fast in just the last 2 minutes. So that's like the stump.
hmm,
Um, and so, yeah, playing with the lines and the washes and stuff. Um,
yeah.
so those are my examples. Um, yeah, if anybody, I guess before I jump into the I will stop this share. And before I jump into talking more about inking tools and techniques, um, I will. Is there anyone else who wants to share what they did during this half hour?
Really
Okay,
fast, show a
Doc Cox.
couple. I
So,
can spotlight them
oh yeah,
if you
yeah.
like.
If you can do the spotlighting, I
Yeah.
think you're probably
Sure,
gonna
Doc, go
be better
ahead.
at that
We'll,
than me.
we'll make these really fast. So we can look a little more at what Miriam wants to show us. Oh wait, you know what? I'm sorry. I'll ask Doc too. I'll ask people to unmute as well.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I can't figure out how to do it really fast. Oh, there we go, Doc. Um,
There we go. I just went a little cartoony. Um,
thanks.
and just that sense of being on the camera, like who's watching me.
Yeah,
So there you have it.
very nice. Yeah, I think
Awesome,
I like the
thanks.
contrast of the thick eyebrows. Like I think that's where you use your black is in the eyebrows.
Right.
Cool. We'll move on. Kate, are you there? You want to show real fast? You should be able to unmute as well.
I will.
Ah, there we go. Right? Kate, you're still muted. I'm not sure why. There we go. Oh.
I was just did an owl with its rat.
Oh yeah, look at the rat. Nice midtones though, right?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. It looks
And the
pretty.
glowing and the halo, you're definitely thinking about darks and lights there. I can see, even though it's, it's a visual gag. I can see
Yeah,
that.
I wasn't really able to follow the cam. That was just too, but I was inspired by like owls glowing at night.
Cool. Thanks, Kate. We'll move to Jen and then Edgar, then Laura. We'll see if we can move through these. Let's see.
Okay, so oh no, those are my pens. So some of you figured out that the link I found was owls in Florida and they were awake. So yeah, so there's this guy who was facing the camera. And then this other one who was kind of hidden behind him. And so I tried to use your like the midtone thing to get the wood chips.
Totally.
But also the wood in the back.
Yeah, and I think that like his kind of belly is like one of the whitest things there. Yeah. So
yeah,
so that really, comes to the forefront that way.
Yeah.
Cool, Jen. Thanks.
Thank you. This was cool.
Well, thank you very much for the inspiration, Miriam. And I went to an old favorite, the Scarecrow of Romney Marsh, because one of the characters looks like an owl, but I won't use my usual production. But another time I'll sing the Scarecrow song. The Patrick McGowan played the Scarecrow. It's a fabulous Disney movie. But anyway, thank you for the chance I rarely ink directly on paper. And today I did it and I was happy with the result. So thank you.
Yeah. I feel like, what you have behind his head in the first panel, like, I think you definitely like his head pops out because it's the more contrasty, and then you're using the tones in the background, but still because they have that really, alive line, like the whole thing is still, vibrating nicely.
Oh, thank you very much. And thank you,
Awesome,
Tom.
Edgar. Thanks. Yeah, we'll go to Laura, then Jeb, then Jackie.
Unblur real quick. So fun.
Oh, beautiful.
I have never done anything that dark, so I appreciate the prompt and the techniques.
That's really cool. Yeah, like you have like you can see it from far away and the shapes are really strong, and then when you see it from closer up, you see the details.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, we'll go to Jeb. Let's see.
Hi, y'all. Let's see. So I tried out different tools. My ink brush, I usually love doing like midtones with, but it can't really, it's too low on ink. So I tried using that for this first little sketch. But I couldn't get quite dark enough as I wanted, so I decided to just kind of switch tools. So I did some with just a little gel pen and using mostly hatching. And then I tried doing some pointillism with this one.
Yeah, and I love the negative space on that one too. Like the black behind it. Yeah.
That was the best part. It was so fun to kind of carve out like the shape and then kind of fill in all these little dots. And then I didn't get too far with these, but I tried a different
They're still full of personality though, those two.
Yeah. I figured out you could go back on the live, like scroll back and just kind of see the owls in different stages. So I recommend kind of scrolling through if you want to find the owls. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Jeb. We'll go to Jackie, Lauren, and Gail. We'll try and let's see. There we go. Can you unmute Jackie?
Yeah,
Look at that.
I found a narrative in this. Mom loves her some owls. My late mother really loved owls. I have a lot of owl jewelry and socks and stuff from her. So I just did things from the cam and really experimented with cross hatching And ever since my mother passed away, I'm trying to see the owls in everything. And I wonder what would have happened if she watched more owl cams when she was sick on her iPad, now my iPad. So just, I really tuned in. Maybe I'll add some more to this later.
Yeah, that's amazing that you were able to really compose a whole story, and with the, with the different sizes panels, it looks great.
Thank you. I use the panels from the Yorkshire bird cam.
Oh, that you were inspired by looking at those as panels. That's really cool. I didn't even think about that.
Yes.
Thanks, Jackie.
Sure, thank you.
That's a reminder, and I'll put it in the chat again. And we'd love to see these later on social media or in our PDF or something. So we'd love to see them again, so you can share. Okay, we'll go to Learned really fast. I'm gonna put that in the chat again.
Hello. I'm sorry, I really didn't do the exercise very well. I just couldn't seem to get into that. I just did a little cartoon, which has some cross-hatching.
No, yeah, it does. It definitely has different kinds of textures.
Yeah, I didn't really do the whole exercise, but
no, it inspired you, so that's what we're looking for.
I can show you one other thing that speaking of cross-hatching and that kind of thing. This is from my sketchbook, a spaceship from the 1940s. Anyway, cool. I do that kind of stuff all the time. So
midtones.
Anyway, it was fun. Thanks,
Lauren. Talk to you soon. Here's Gail.
Hi there, Miriam. Thank you so much. That was really fun. This was my first exercise, and it was fun, but harder than I expected. But it's something I'm going to go back to. I like doing that. This is what I came up with from the owl cam. I also was intrigued by that the cave with the hole in there. And I cheated a little bit, and I Googled pictures of baby owls, and I just drew a baby owl there. And the owl is saying, "This cave may not look like much, but it's my home."
Nice.
And then here you see there's a person coming into the cave, and the owl is saying, "Uh-oh." And then the person has a pickaxe and a rope, and the owl is saying, "Oh no."
Wow, that escalated quickly.
I'm not I'm not sure what number 4 is, but it might not be good. So thank you. That was really fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. We'll go to Marlene Goatee next. Here we go. Just a few more, y'all, and then we'll go to Miriam's slideshow. Hi, Marlene.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not doing inking, and I do love watercolor, so I've confined myself to the task to use black ink, which I find quite difficult. You need to have a steady hand, because if you go over the lines, then it might change what you try and achieve. And so I've got some owls, and they're a couple. In the first panel, all of them have emotion, by the way. In the first panel, they sort of sitting at a creek close by, this one here, and just listening to the environment. And I used your technique to showcase the water falling from behind, and Papa Owl sitting on a rock, while Mama Owl is just being herself. Yeah. Panel 2 showcases happier times, where they are talking to each other. I use cross-hatching behind Mama Owl quite a bit. And then some Zentangle behind the other character, with some blackening, as in the first panel, with just an ordinary
watercolor brush and pitch black ink. And as I said, it was really taxing to keep within the lines. Panel 3, over here, I thought, yeah, it's very effective to bring out the white images, and I guess I can progress on to color to bring it out a bit more. The one owl is on a mobile phone talking because they become quite modern, and the other is accompanying the first one with a scarf around the neck. And so just a normal sort of setting. And then finally, I didn't finish this because I didn't have enough time. Used a bit of Zentangle around the background, and finally indicating through the eyes how deeply we think, owls can think. And so thank you for giving me.
I can see you're using all the techniques. Like you wanted to make your own story and you wanted to use your cartooning techniques, and that's great. Like obviously, it's just inspiration, but I can see even in this very cartoon style that you're thinking about midtones, and you're thinking about the narrative effects of black and white.
Awesome. Yeah, and I never thought of it that way, but like you said, you can tell there are no words here, as you can see, but I think it's very effective for kindergarten stories, or even older, for people to work out what's going on, their own interpretation and such. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, do a couple more, and then we'll do Miriam's presentation. Here we go to Erin. Hey, Erin.
Hello. I also did a cartoony thing because I just had screen fatigue and couldn't look at anything. So I decided to not look at anything while drawing an owl. But I really enjoyed the lead in with the textures and stuff, because I tend to usually draw really simple spare things with just either lines or fills, and I don't do a lot of this kind of stuff. So that was really helpful. So cool, and thank you.
Cool. Yeah, I can see you were using different different mark making in the owl.
Yeah, and also being messy, because I also don't tend to do that in my lines that much, and that was fun.
Nice.
Thanks, Erin. Okay, we'll go to Div. Hey, Div.
I'm gonna put some light if y'all can see. I'm not sure, but I also haven't used I haven't done a lot of like cross hatching and like these sketching techniques. It was like really fun to sort of yeah, I don't know if you can see, but yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that you use color, and that's really nice, but that definitely
I try to use a
the
bit
lines and
of
tones are still
watercolor.
very strong. Like I can definitely see that you're thinking about tones and values also as well in there.
Thank you. This
Susanna.
was really nice.
Thanks, Div. We'll go to Susanna real quick.
Hey. So I actually took an inking class over the summer. I was in New York and took Steve Walker's inking class at the Art Student League of New York. So I was able to, this was a perfect workshop because I was really able to work with the minimalism. I just love the assignment. It's just such a, it's really challenging to catch the owls when they're doing something interesting. But I'm also I like to use watercolors and neon watercolors. So that's what I'm trying to play with the base of the stump. And then it's for me a challenge of working with really minimal lines, and just wanted to make it all black in the background, and I'll probably update whatever the dialogue says.
Nice. Awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, I love the shapes in the negative space.
High contrast. Looks great. Thanks, Susanna.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go to Michael. And
I just want to say I've been working digitally so much. I feel like I should, try to counterbalance with more analog. And as fun as this was, it reminded me, analog is so messy, and there's no undo button. Anyway,
Beautiful.
Mm.
Very
this
moody.
this started with a watercolor wash, but it was the wrong paper. So then I went over it with cross hatching, and then I went over it with a brush pen. And here, I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit of wash on the baby owl.
Yeah, this is kind of, you did it like a wash behind so that the white pops out more, the white of the body, right? Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And then in this one, and I blue penciled all of them, but I focused on the ones that I thought I'd have a shot at with the time. But I really needed 3 more hours
Thanks,
to really
Michael.
play it.
I'm going to remind everybody again, I'll put it in the chat really fast about sharing. We'll go to Lentil, and then hopefully, Miriam, we can squeak that PowerPoint.
Yeah, I can run through it pretty fast.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
Hello.
Hi.
Can I share your screen?
Oh yeah, I'll have to change that for you. Hang on a second.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I did that on Procreate because I didn't have ink with me, but I just spent forever making tiny marks on the trunk, and then that owl only landed there for like a minute, so they're all white.
Yeah, no, I feel like you can actually see the temporality there, that like because of the detail in the trunk, like that looks more permanent, where the owl, I don't know, I feel like it has a look of being like just a flash of light that's gone in a minute. I don't know.
It's kind of, yeah, kind of ghostly or something.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree about the temporality. A great phrase for that. It just feels like it's just there for a moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Lentil, can you hit stop on that? I think, yeah, there we go. Cool.
Okay, so I will jump on the interest of, not keeping people too long. I will jump right back to my PowerPoint now. So I just wanted to talk about, how inking affects and effects narrative. So it both affects the reading experience of the narrative, and it can, create the narrative all by itself. So here's, just some examples of some different artists with their different tools. So like dip pen and ink is one of the most traditional cartooning tools. And so a lot of like the old school manga would be made this way. And so like this is, Rumiko Takahashi, one of the classic masters of manga, and like, yeah, probably like Inside the Clouds, like that's a cool midtone she's doing. And that is probably all like with dip pen. Like this is, a lot of manga now is done digitally, but this is, from the 70s. So there might be some tones going on, but a lot of it is hand drawn. Technical pen, a lot of people like technical pen because it's very portable and you can do it on the go. And one of my favorite artists for this is Julia Wirtz. And so again, somebody with a pretty, simple or even naive looking style. But now that you're thinking about midtones, obviously you can see how, the blacks are very deliberately chosen. And there are just a few things that are actually pure white that are also deliberately chosen. And also how it is kind of tricky the way, she separates out the texture of the jeans from the texture of the bench. And then the little bit of the shadows on things, like in the bags of coffee in the window, and then in the shadow under the bench. So technical pen, the big challenge with it is that you don't really get line variation. You get a little bit, but not much. So you have to really figure out your shapes and your mark making in order to have your foreground or your focal points pop out from your background or your non-focal points. Brush and ink, like there's a lot of different directions you can go in that. You can go like some of my favorite cartoonists. So Olga Lavrentieva, like it's a very painterly style, which again is something that I said is only been done kind of more recently as printing technology has caught up with painting a little bit. But then of course somebody like Jaime Hernandez, whose stuff is super clean. He also inks mostly with brush, which is, very impressive. So like, but like you can see like his real, so this is not a printed page of Jaime Hernandez. This is more like one of his originals. So that's why you see the blacks and the grays, which is more like when he just wants to fill in an area solid black. he'll sometimes, you know, use different tool to do that. So brush pen, I don't think I have an example, but there are a lot of people like, you know, Craig Thompson famously used a lot of brush pen because it has a lot of benefits of brush, but also very portable. It's not quite as flexible as brushes. Like I was saying, brushes are kind of cool because you can do really big gestural messy movements all the way down to super fine movements. If you practice, you can do that with the same brush. So brush pen is a little bit more limited in, you know, in the amount of variation you can get, but it's quite a bit of variation as far as things that are also portable go. And then pencils, yeah. There are some cartoonists who use pencils, and then pencils, of course, come in different hardnesses for different effects. And the softer the pencil, the higher it is up into B, the more you can kind of do tones with it. So some of my first comics, so this is one of like from my first graphic novel. So this is all in pencil. And so the top images are basically, you know, photo reference, and then the bottom images are more cartoony style. And so it's very easy to draw with, but like it's very difficult to get the contrast. Like, you know, when you scan and when you print, it's hard to get many values of gray, which is why when we were doing the gradients, like I kind of had, you know, and I showed the example, it was fairly few squares, like, you know, 1/2 looks, you know, much different, doesn't look much different than like 5/8 or something. Like you can't, in person you can distinguish those grays, but in the printing you can't always. And so that was something very difficult about using pencil. And obviously I did darken the black in Photoshop, and I erased a lot of smudges in the white in Photoshop also after scanning in a page like this. But somebody like Renee French is a real master of graphite pencil in comics. And like this page also, like, it's really, you know, so, you know, there's really very little that's either black or white when you're using pencils. And so she uses white, obviously, but there's not barely anything here that's pure black. However, you still get the contrast. Like if you squint at this, you can still see the difference between, you know, the gray of the one child's pajamas, the gray of the other child's pajamas, and the gray of the wall behind. And so like she's really great at being able to, you know, have even, you know, grays that are contrastful with each other and that are textured in a way to make them warm, but not so textured that, you know, they draw the eye too much. And yeah, felt tip pen is another one that some artists use. In some ways, it's kind of the worst of brush and technical pen because they can be really thick, they can be really smudgy, but you still don't get a lot of line variation. But an artist that I love that works in felt tip pen, and it's really very impressive, is Keith Knight, the autobio and political cartoonist. And specifically interesting is that, you know, he often, he is a Black cartoonist and he often writes and draws about race. And so for a lot of people, using just grays and halftones, it's always also a challenge, like how do you depict different skin colors when it's important to a story that people know that people have different skin colors. And so he actually uses hatching in a skin color, which is so friggin' hard to do. Like if those lines are not perfectly parallel, instead of being a tone, it looks like somebody has stuff on their face, like has blemishes on their face. And so the fact that a lot of this stuff he does do, you know, with a technical pen, and maybe even, you know, early on, I think he famously did everything with Sharpie, which was really punk rock. So like, yeah, I love to show him as, you know, somebody who does kind of crazy things with felt tip pens. And also like all his lettering, as you can see, his lettering is a very important part of his comic style, and that's also with felt tip pen. Yeah, so this skin tone would not be digital. I think that's a very good question because a lot of people would do it digitally these days. But yeah, like his earlier stuff is definitely all handmade. So yeah, he just developed that skill. And yeah, and so then you know, a lot of people are using digital effects to kind of mimic some things that are from traditional art. So this is Cole Pauls, who is a young Canadian artist from the Tahltan First Nation. So that's why this comic is written in it's part of a language revitalization. So he was doing this superhero story that's actually in a First Nations language. And so you can see that I think his line art is traditional, and then he scans and does these digital effects. And so you can see that he's influenced by both like, you know, coastal native form line design, but also by like zines. And so he's using these dot and these very, you know, these very evocative halftones to evoke like newspaper and zine culture. Pantone patterns. Yeah, exactly. Like that's what he's referencing, Jackie. And then yeah, and then you know, there's some more modern manga does a real mix of you know, traditional and digital. Like this is Goodnight Pun Pun by Inio Asano. And so the characters, it's possible that they're drawn digitally, but I think a lot of manga, like the line art, is still made traditionally. But then the background is basically a manipulated photo. Like the backgrounds in this comic are photos. So that's another way that people are finding to, you know, to mix hand drawn and reference. And yeah, and then another artist that I love, Julie Flett, who does a lot of picture books. So she does like, you know, use the cut paper collage, like if you guys remember Ezra Jack Keats, one of my favorite classic children's book illustrators, who used you'd use like toned paper and patterned paper and do cutout collages. But you know, this is now digital. So what this artist does is, she says she does often paint and scan the paper, but then the collage itself will be made digitally. Snowy Day, that's right, Kate Moon. Absolutely. So yeah, so that's just and then Eddie Campbell, who was the first slide I showed with the guy with the stubble and the sweater and the other guy all in black. He had a blog where he talked about technique in the early 2000s that I really loved. And I feel like he has a real artistly way of looking at inking, in that he's just always trying weird shit and seeing what effects it has. So this is one here he was talking about, you know, inking with a rolled up towel to get, you know, a multiplied line that you kind of see underneath. And I know that, you know, in art school, in one of my first drawing classes, they had us like just grab sticks from outside, grab twigs from outside, dip them in ink and try to draw with them. And so, you know, just inking with whatever you have on hand, even if it's not an art tool, can often lead to real serendipity and fun looks. And of course, you know, anytime you have something weird or different, that, you know, that suggests narrative as well. So yeah, so that's my talk about that. That's my
Awesome.
yeah, thinking about inking.
Wow. Well, thanks, Miriam. This was God, there was so much great old school. And by that I kind of mean analog and wet media and stuff like that in that last batch of stuff you showed. It felt so good because I've been so glued to this screen for so long. And I kind of fell into using markers and stuff recently, even the shitty ones, you know, you mentioned, because they're fast. It's really nice to get back into like draw with sticks or fold up some paper towel and play around with that. It's so exciting to be reminded of those kinds of methods of drawing.
Yeah, and that's why I really love watercolor also, is the idea that you can't have full control. Like I think that digital is super useful for so many things, but I think that, you know, I feel still like when I'm drawing with digital, it's more like my writer and editor brain that is engaged. Whereas if you're drawing with a medium that's a little bit out of control, things happen to you that are not in your control, and that can be artistically really rich.
Yeah. Yeah. Scary, but rich for sure. All right. Thanks so much for doing this. Thanks so much for this tour of value, right? Of grade, of white to black and all of that stuff. I'm going to ask everyone to unmute and give you a round of applause. And thank you for being here and showing us this great stuff and for showing us these owls, which were captivating.
Yeah, and so now, like anytime you feel like if you're, stuck at home, but you feel like doing some nature drawing or some semi-still life drawing or some life drawing, there's the whole world of nature cams.
Oh my gosh, it's really
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah, cool.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you
Let's
so
say
much.
thank you to Miriam.
Thank you so much,
Susan,
Matthew.
Miriam, thank you so much. Thanks everybody. We'll see you all next time or some other time.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Right.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.